Certainly isn't a slight, and I'm sorry, President William Dobbin, Suffolk County Court Employees Association.
No, I got a contract. We don't have staff.
Okay. My apologies, so welcome.
Thank
Very
you.
happy to have you
Senator.
here.
Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to be here today. You gave me the privilege of appearing last year, and I spoke to you about the staffing issues and the current concerns that we have in Suffolk County. And unfortunately, I'm sad to report nothing has changed. Our staffing levels are lower than they were a year ago. And the court got an increase to their court budget. They got 2.4% increase to their budget last year, and none of it translated into jobs for our courts. President Cullen spoke before about his court offices. They were almost 9% down in staffing. Well, my court offices in Suffolk County are 22% down in staffing. We can't keep our courts safe. We can't keep them secure. And we are here to ask that somebody hold OCA's feet to the fire. Judge Marks was here this morning, and he paints a fairly decent picture of what's going on in the courts, but it's not quite the case. He's talking about 200 more people being hired in the next year. That doesn't even touch what we need. We have a class of 120 court officers going in the end of February. 120 court officers. He's talking about 200 people. Well, what about the other staff? I represent 102 separate titles, ranging from court messenger, court officer, court clerk, court reporter, court attorney referee. It goes on and on. 102 separate titles, and we're suffering. We have the highest mortgage caseload in the state. We have backlogs. Those backlogs, because the court attorneys can't get to do the motions, there's not enough of them, those backlogs translate into zombie homes in our communities. So it affects the community as well. There's a sense that people, this is a human issue. There's a sense that people care about the community, that it should be about public service, but that seems to fall on deaf ears when it comes to OCA. Last year, they received some extra money in the budget. That money went to pay for their raises, judges' raises, an increase, $27 million for judges' raises. None of it translated into more hiring, none of it. And the only reason why there wasn't more hiring this year was because they couldn't settle a contract with one of those unions that just spoke before, CoBank. When they couldn't settle a contract, there was $40 million available. They said, okay, now we'll hire. That's the only reason those people were hired. Last year, Judge Marks, I think it was Senator Bonacek, asked him, he said, what are you going to do if you don't get the money for your raises? And Judge Marks said, well, we'll probably have to reduce staffing through attrition. Well, that's what he's been doing. That's exactly what he's been doing. And the only reason he started to hire was because one of the unions didn't settle their contract this year. He had money that he had to spend. My concern is what's going to happen when these other four unions do finally settle. You're talking maybe $50 million in back pay. Fortunately, my union has a contract. Well, we had a contract. Our last contract expired last year. We're working on a new contract. But what happens when those four unions that have been without a contract since 2011 finally settle their contract? You're talking about $50 to $60 million in back pay owed to those unions. What is that going to translate to the court system? They're not going to be able to hire. We have all these wonderful ideas about programs, putting money to help people that can't afford attorneys. What good is it if there's no staff to support the court? The infrastructure of the court is collapsing. It's collapsing. And nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to be doing a thing about it. It seems like it's become a political game of a ping pong. It goes back and forth, and nothing gets done. I'm here to implore you to please hold their feet to the fire. They have the funds. They have the resources. They decide to spend it in other ways. Without the personnel, without the personnel to support our court system, to answer motions, to accept dockets. Could you ask a judge to initiate a case? Could they prepare a court file? Do they know how to enter it into the system? Do they know how to talk to a litigant in order to prepare an order of protection? It's the little people that work in our system that do all of that. We are the people that make it all work. And when I took over in this union, my motto was that we are the heartbeat of the court. Because without us, without that life of the heartbeat, the system dies. And all these exemplary programs, really good programs, mean nothing. If there's no money to spend, to pay for staffing, to settle contracts that are long overdue, to settle future contracts, we're lost. You ask about do they have reserves? They don't even talk about reserves. They say they can't budget for something that's not due yet. Well, if they have $50 million that they owe to other unions, and they don't have it, haven't even talked about how they're going to pay for it, what's going to happen? I asked Judge Marks, I said, how are you going to pay for it? He says, we'll find a way. They find a way by borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. That seems to be the OCA way. And Judge DiFiore, wonderful. I think she's going to be really, really good for our court system. And she has this excellence initiative. But again, because there's no staff, there's no hiring, there's no contracts that are settled, so we have all this money that is owed, I don't see that it's ever going to be achieved. I think that we all, me, you, Judge Marks, OCA, I think we have to look at it on a human level. I think we have to look at the humanity of people who take off from jobs. They have no sick time, but they have to take off from work to go to court to have a case heard or to file a petition. And then they're told, you know what, we don't have enough staff to handle it. Or we don't have enough staff to open a courtroom, so you'll have to go away. You took the day off for nothing, and that's a lost day. We have prisoners that can't be transported to courtrooms because there are not enough court officers. What do we do with that? There are people who take off from work to come to court to see their loved ones come into the courtroom, to hope that maybe there's going to be some kind of settlement coming to the case. And it just doesn't happen. The defendant gets brought back to the jail, wait 2 more weeks, and hopefully something can happen. It's a waste of resources, it's a waste of time, and it's really a dishonest way to do things. I think we're pulling the wool over the public's eyes, and I think that OCA is responsible. I think they have a fiduciary responsibility to care for the court system, and since 2011, they have neglected that responsibility. We are all victims, the public, the staff, and I believe you as well, because you're told that they're going to do one thing and they do another. They have a way of using words. They're attorneys. They know how to use words to express thoughts the way they want it to be heard. But if you look at it at a human level, things are very different. Thank you so much for allowing me to appear here today and being very patient. Thank you.
Thank you. Please thank all
Thank
of your
you.
members. Thank you.
Thank you.